Hello everyone, and welcome to this first video that will be part of a series about the Go programming language, also known as Golang. And in today's video, and in this first video, we will talk about Golang in general as a programming language and why is it used in the first place, what are its strong points, and also we're going to write our first Golang program that will be a Hello World program. So first of all, let's explain what Golang actually is. Before we actually start the video, notice that you do not need to have a prior programming experience to follow this series. In fact, you could have never programmed before and you could follow this series along just fine. The only rare cases where I will mention some other programming languages, I will never mention their syntax or how they work, but just generally make some comparisons when you will understand the concepts going throughout the course. So there are basically no prerequisites for this course in terms of programming. And in fact, now you can see the structure. We will explain it briefly later, but for now let's just talk about Golang. So since you need not, of course, to understand programming before watching this video, I will also explain some programming concepts that relate to all languages. So let's give a definition of what Golang is. So Golang specifically is a compiled, statically typed language. And well, let's first go through these two properties of the Golang language. And so the first one, it is compiled. And so we're gonna explain what these things are, because of course I'm not assuming that you already know what these things are. So even though maybe you have never programmed in your life, you might understand the fact that computers actually communicate, that computers kind of speak the language of binary digits. So they understand strings of binary digits, okay, of zeros and ones. And of course, to communicate with a computer, you need to furnish the computer some instructions in this format. Okay, but the programming languages that we use every day, we all know that they use a language that is understandable by humans, so a humanly readable language with instructions such as print and so on and so forth. And so how do we convert this humanly readable language into binary code? Well, this is done by basically because it programs that. And so the process that translates the language, the humanly readable programming language inside into the machine code can differ. And this is why here we specify that Golang is compiled, because there are two main types of languages, and these are interpreted languages and compiled languages. Explain compiled languages. So compiled languages, and examples of compiled languages are, for example, C and also Rust, and in this case Golang too, but there are many other compiled languages. What they do is basically, imagine we have your code. This could be Golang code, C code, or whatever other code that is humanly readable that we have written to be executed. Then our code basically gets passed into a compiler, and this compiler turns this code into machine code that the machine understands. So this is fundamentally how a compiled language works. However, notice that the process of compiling alone is extremely complicated and complex. And of course, this is only a very high-level view of what happens. But this is all we need really for now. And what about interpreted languages? So interpreted languages, on the other hand, instead of being compiled directly by, again, a program like the compiler that takes the code and turns it into binary code, it basically, the code that we've written, on the other hand, gets taken by a program that then executes the code. And an example of an interpreted language is, for example, Python, or Lua. And also now I think it is the time also to give another distinction about languages, because here we said that Golang is a compiled, well, statically typed. We'll come to it later. Actually, let's forget about this word for now. We will explain it in the later videos. But Golang is a compiled statically typed programming language. And now there's another difference that we want to make about languages, and that is there are scripting languages and programming languages. Programming languages, and this again I'm giving very simple and practical definitions, and these are not textbook definitions, of course. Just like the definitions that we gave for interpret and compile languages, actually a little bit more technical than that, but I'm trying my best to be to use a simple language. Well, programming languages are languages where there is an entry point, we could say an entry point function, usually called main. And examples of programming languages are Java, C, and Golang. Why? Because, for example, here we can already see in our Golang program that we have this func main. And, well, and for example, let's give an example in C. In C, for example, we have our int. In fact, for example, also in C, we have a main function inside which we put all our code that needs to be executed when we compile a file. And you might ask, well, okay, especially if you have never maybe programmed before, you might ask, okay, well, but then what other types of languages are there? And another question that might come from another viewer that maybe has used Python or JavaScript before, he might ask, well, for example, in Python, I do not need to insert a main function or maybe in JavaScript to execute the code. It just executes from top to bottom. Then how do these languages work? And well, these are called scripting languages. And examples of them are exactly Python, Lua, and JavaScript, for example. And why? Because these languages basically do not have a main function entry point. So when, for example, you just write in a plain text in a file, just write, for example, in JavaScript. If you have never used JavaScript, don't worry about what this means. But if you create maybe a file.js, and then you write inside it console.log hello, and you execute this, you use maybe a node to run this file in the terminal, you get hello. But this, of course, would not work inside C, because we would not tell, for example, for C, you would have not told the compiler where exactly is the main entry point. And now to clarify another thing, notice that here we talked about scripting languages. We said that Lua, Python, and JavaScript are scripting languages, and that Java, C, and Golang are programming languages. But do not fall into, do not erroneously think that scripting must in some sort imply interpreted, or that programming must imply compiled, because this is actually not the case. We can actually find some counter examples in both cases. One of them might be Java, because, well, Java is a programming language, but it is not compiled. So, and well, it is actually, there's a more technical word for it, but let's not go into it. It's called byte compilation, but let's ignore it for now, because I wanted to keep this this video more, we could say, open to everyone. So with this said, I think that at this point you have a small map in mind of programming languages and what the difference about compiled languages and interpreted languages, as well as also maybe you now understand the difference between scripting and programming languages. If some of the words that I've used are not yet very clear to you, it's completely fine, because of course programming is one of those cases where you learn pretty much 90% by doing and not by actually studying stuff. And so you will learn then by practicing and getting your hands dirty by coding. So this is the best way to learn stuff in programming. However, at this point you might still have a question in your mind, and that is, well, but then what is the advantage of a language being compiled over interpreted? So in fact, we said already that Golang is a compiled language, and this is one of its key strengths, in fact, because it allows Golang to be a very fast language compared, for example, to uninterpreted languages like Python. And in fact, you might ask, well, but why is Golang, being a compiled language, why is it faster, for example, than Python? Well, because Python, and we will look at from a very high level at the compilation process, at the interpretation process that Python goes through. And in particular, we have our Python code here. The Python code gets translated into C code, and then the C code gets compiled. And as you might guess, this is of course more time consuming than just compiling your code directly. Not only that, but also Python is a language with garbage collection and dynamically typed, and this also makes the language even slower. Golang, as we will see, is statically typed. That helps a lot with compilation time. However, Golang still has garbage collection, and we will explain what these terms are, so don't worry if you don't understand yet what they mean, but we will see that even though Golang is garbage collected, and it has still very, very fast performances, because it's one basically of its key strengths. So before we actually jump to the code, I want to mention where I am at the moment. And in particular, here I am inside the website known as the Golang Playground, that I will leave in the description. That I will leave also in the description. But the link for the site is the following: play.golang.com. So why am I using this? Well, because at the beginning, since the stuff that we will be explaining are pretty simple, we do not need a development environment, a local development environment installed on our computer, and therefore we will be fine using this website. And so, with this said, I think we are now ready to explore the structure of this program. So now, of course, while I will go through this program, I won't explain super in depth what each line of code does, but I will just give a quick explanation. So the first line that we see is package main. So this is and also before we can proceed, in Golang you can comment the code using these two slashes. And in fact, you might have noticed that before I was writing all that stuff using these two slashes, or sometimes this other type of comment. And well, you might ask now, why would we want to comment our code? Well, and what is a comment in the first place? A comment inside our program is simply some text that do not get executed. In this case, the compiler just skips it. He does not care about it. So we can use it to, for example, elucidate the instructions that we have inside our code. So for example, if we have here this import statement, we could say we are importing thumped. So this library, there's a little bit of, and well, also the pronunciation of this library is a little bit a debate, we could say. So there are most people pronounce it as thumped. Some people just pronounce it format, because, well, the thumped here name comes from format, because it basically it imports input output capabilities as well as string formatting capabilities. We will see what these things are later. But just know that this is sometimes very often called thumped, but sometimes also FMT or format. So for example, here in this line here, import, we might comment we are importing the thumped library. And so this is how we usually use comments. But sometimes comments, when we will see when we maybe have an error in our code and we do not want to delete the line, we might just comment the line out, so that we will basically delete the code for the compiler, because the compiler will just jump it, but we will still have it in our code, and we will not have it deleted. So if we want to maybe restore it, we just need to remove the comment. And as I mentioned before, there's another way to make comments, not only with these double slashes, but you can also do it with this slash and then a star, and then of course close it. And this is for multi-line comments, because if you do a comment like this, so say comment, then in the next line it will not be commented. So if you do this, this will throw an error. But if you comment with this multi-line comment, so I'm going to say multi-line comment, and on the next line we will also have a comment. So this will still be part of the comment. So this is still part of the comment, and this also, and so on. So this is how you make a multi-line comment. So with this said, as promised, let's go through the structure of this program. So at first we say package main. We will see what packages are in Golang, but for now just know that every program needs to be in a package. Then we are importing the library that we said thumped. So here we're importing a library which is basically a bunch of code that is already pre-written for us, and thumped library in particular is the library for input, output, and string formatting. And we will see what strings are later, For now, input output, you probably already know what that means. It just means taking input from the user and then returning output to the screen, maybe, for example. In this case, printing out values to the terminal. So this is basically an interface. Then here we have our definition of our function main, and as we will later see what functions are, and so do not worry about the func keyword for now. Then we have the main function, the main name here, which is again what we mentioned before about, well, programming language, about the entry point of the program. And in particular, main just tells the compiler that everything that will be inside here, once we compile the program, will be executed. So in this case, the compiler will know that everything inside these curly braces here will be executed. In particular, this is the line thump.print line hello playground. So in fact, if we try to run this program, it yields the string hello playground. Also to explain what the thump print line hello playground does, and in fact you have seen it now that we have run the program, it precisely prints out the string hello comma playground to the, and so this is the function, so this is the instruction that tells the compiler to print inside the terminal the string that we want. So for now, just think of a string as a text, so a concatenation of characters. So this is a string, just a concatenation of characters. This, comma playground, so hello playground is an example of a string. And however, be careful in this case that if you try to write inside the println function hello playground without the quotes, we will get an error. Because of course, to tell the compiler that what we insert in the function is a string, we need to put these quotes. So always remember that strings always need to be inside these quotes here. So with this said, I think that for this tutorial we said enough about the Go programming language. In the next video we will look at variables.